Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Films and Stuff podcast. I am Ethan, joined by Pete. Hey, Pete, what's up?
Not much, buddy. How are you?
Oh, it's a big day today. You know why?
I know why.
We have to discuss the latest installment of the DC Studios universe or extended universe, however we refer to it.
Sorry to interrupt. So actually, according to James Gunn, this is the first movie in the new DC universe.
Mm-hmm.
It was supposed to be the penultimate movie in the DCEU, and I guess this movie got adopted by James Gunn into the new DCU because he went on record to say that the Blue Beetle is going to be the first superhero in the DC universe. Which, if you'll remember, I was highly opposed to all the way back whenever he's announced it last summer or whatever it was.
Pete, I do remember that. And I have to say, for reasons that we will get into, I think that your opposition was well-founded. If Blue Beetle was the kickoff to the new DC universe, I think it's a little bit of an underwhelming start.
This is not how you would want to kick off the new universe.
No.
Because, spoiler alert, it was god awful, honestly.
So to put that into context, you and I, within the last 12 months, we have suffered through Black Adam. We have suffered through, and that's really, really what it was. It was suffering through Black Adam. We have tolerated Shazam, where I said that the animated pencil was the best part of the film. And we sat through Flash, which I actually thought was pretty good. I think you were a little bit more tepid about it.
Yeah.
And now, with a lot of anticipation, coming the end of the summer season, kids are heading back to school. Summer holidays are winding down. The days are slowly getting cooler. We have now been able to see Blue Beetle, and apparently it is going to be the first film of the new extended universe. And your Films and Stuff representatives have roundly graded this as...
Oh my God, a skip and ask for your money back.
Yeah. To put it in perspective, I messaged you, and my original message said, "Is this the worst movie of all time?" And I thought, come on, you're being dramatic, be realistic. And I changed my message to, "Is this the worst superhero movie of all time?" And you came back and said, "Worst movie ever."
Yeah.
You didn't even qualify it.
Oh, no, it was...
Is that our emotions talking? Sleep deprivation? Is that too many Red Bulls and popcorn? I think I mean it.
Yeah, I was super, super disappointed with the movie. I was expecting... Actually, I had no expectations, to be very honest, because Blue Beetle as a character, not someone I grew up reading. I knew of Blue Beetle from really the more modern day takes on the DC universe, the comics universe. I have no emotional attachment to the Blue Beetle character.
Yeah, I've been trying to break this down because the unhappiness I have with this film is bothering me a little bit. So I was trying to break it down a little bit. The fact that we don't know Blue Beetle, it is definitely difficult that you don't have a character with a lot of brand recognition. But I thought that the flip side was almost every other character that we see, we have some type of preconceived notion. And now we're getting to the point where we've seen multiple Batmans. We're probably going to see another Aquaman, another Wonder Woman. How many Spider-Mans? It's hard when you have to reprise a character that people already have some type of emotional, if not attachment to, at least idea about, right? Mm-hmm. And Blue Beetle represented the blank canvas, right? The opportunity that no one came in thinking, this is what I think Blue Beetle should be. Oh, that's not the person that I envisioned would be Blue Beetle. That's not how Blue Beetle should act. I thought it was a good opportunity.
Yeah.
So maybe I thought that there wasn't a lot of buildup, but maybe that was good because I didn't have these crazy expectations. I thought that the movie poster, like where they just showed kind of like the radiant blue beetle, I thought that was a cool look. I thought that, what I saw of the costume was kind of a cool looking costume. It had a lot of similarities to the Flash. I thought this could actually be pretty good and then something to build off of the extended universe from, but it was not to be.
This really could have been the Guardians of the Galaxy moment. And by that, I mean, when Guardians was announced for the MCU, I didn't grow up reading the Guardians of the Galaxy comics. So for me, they were not a core member of the MCU or at least the
Right.
Marvel Comics universe. As far as I was concerned, whether it's true or not, they were considered a part of the new generation of comic book characters, with the caveat that I don't know when they were originally introduced in the comics. I say that with the caveat that when I think of the Marvel Comics universe, I think of the originals, the Fantastic Fours, the X-Men's, the Spider-Mans, to a lesser extent, Iron Man, Thor, etc., that kind of thing. So all these ancillary characters, who are obviously not ancillary characters, I've always thought of as the newer generation. And I feel the same way for the DC universe, which is, if it's not really a member of the Justice League, any other comic book character for me is a part of the newer generation. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So we had pretty low expectations. We didn't have a lot of, pent up feelings about this character or loyalty to the character. What did you think of the casting? Because this movie went wrong somewhere. Let's break it down. Was it the casting? I don't think so.
Casting in the sense, were these actors good or not good in their roles? No real comment. I have no problem with Zolo Marduena. I have no problem, I guess, with Bruna Marquezine or with any of the cast. To be honest, as actors, I have no problem with them. I think I have a problem more with the script. I have a problem more with the
story,
the characters themselves, not the actors. So in terms of casting, no issues.
Yeah.
I get why they got George Lopez to be in there, because you always do want one comic relief character. And I guess George Lopez was that comic relief character. But he was actually he and the sister, Belisa Escobedo, were my two least favorite.
I agree. I think the casting was not problematic. It's hard to say that Zolo was amazing because I don't think that he had a lot to work with.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily his performance that was bad, but I don't feel like this strong connection to him after watching this movie. I think the casting was fine. I think the script was very, very cheesy, very, very cliched. And I think that the story was vanilla at best.
I would also say there was a lot of, and this is going to be me being very cynical, but I think there was also a lot of moments in the script where they were playing up the Mexican/Latin angle to cater to the audience more than for it to be natural.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And again, maybe I'm being very cynical, but I just got the feeling like they were overplaying their hand to kind of be like, hey, look, remember, we're foreigners in America. We're Latin. We're Mexican. Haha, don't forget. We're not the same as everybody else.
Yeah, I feel the same way, that it was unnecessarily reliant on the Mexican heritage. And I think it was obvious that they were a Mexican family. And I don't think that there was any resistance to accepting them as a Mexican family or even a family that had a lot of love. I think it just went a little bit over the top for not a lot of purpose. It just seemed to be overly Mexican for the purpose of being overly Mexican. I don't understand exactly what the intent was, because no audience would watch this and not understand that they're a Mexican family that has a lot of love, that has a lot of loyalty. But then what is the actual purpose of overemphasizing it? I didn't come away with that.
Yeah.
And I'd also say, when I was reading the reviews online, generally this movie has received positive audience reviews. The box office is not doing phenomenally well, but the audience reviews have been generally positive. But the critical reviews, they've all seemed to focus on the fact that it's a very Mexican or Latino inspired story. They don't actually say anything is good about the movie. They say an endearing story about a Mexican family, or, the Mexican heritage is coming out very strong. Almost everything that's positive comes about the nationalities. It doesn't actually talk about the movie itself, the characters in the movie itself, the plot itself. None of that, I think, has been critically acclaimed at all. I think it's just, we finally have like a Mexican superhero.
That's a good thing to have a good diverse cast of superheroes, but that can't be the
It's not the calling card
thing about your superhero.
So if we take a step back, the world has been evolving and entertainment industry's been evolving as well. You and I both come from different backgrounds, so I think we've been really happy to see a lot more inclusiveness as well, right? We've seen Ms. Marvel, South Asian. We saw Middle Eastern with Moon Knight.
Yep.
We've seen more inclusiveness, and I think that's very important. And I think everyone's accepted all of those characters very well. And I think that everyone would have accepted Blue Beetle well. But I thought that Blue Beetle was a little bit different than Moon Knight, although a little bit similar to Ms. Marvel, where they really focused on the family's ethnicity at the expense of actually the story. And I think that, focusing on Jamie Reyes more as a person and, his relationship with the Scarab and how he got involved in this, I think would have been more compelling than focusing on the family. It just wasn't a compelling or a funny background to me. And I think that unless you're really from a Mexican family, I don't even think it would extend to all of Latin America. But I think unless you're really from a Mexican family, you're probably not going to be enthralled by that storyline and the amount of emphasis put on it. So let's talk about the superhero itself. Do you like the origin of Blue Beetle? And do you like Blue Beetle as a superhero? Let me kick it off with a hot take and you tell me how you feel.
Okay.
I thought the origin was the minimal, laziest origin you could have of the Scarab and what happened. Some big kind of multinational military industry found something in the ice. They took it back to a lab. Someone stole it from the lab, gave it to someone, and then almost instantaneously it bonded or synced with that unsuspecting new superhero. Is that like a fair summary of exactly what happened?
Yeah.
There was nothing original about that.
Nope.
Nothing compelling. It was just a series of random events, really kind of the weakest superhero origin I think you could have, right?
As I was watching the movie and taking my notes, I kept referring to other superhero movies.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so they mentioned that this is a symbiote. So that's Venom. Somehow comes to Earth, chooses who it wants to bond with, bonds with that person as a symbiosis. So that is the Venom story.
Yeah.
1. 2, you have a military contracting company that develops weapons. Then you have one leader who wants to continue developing weapons based on this. You have one leader who doesn't. That's Iron Man from the movies.
Yep.
Then he has an Iron Man suit, which was, the Blue Beetle suit was very much like an Iron Man suit.
Yeah.
Then you had the story of how they were trying to steal away the technology from Cord Industries as an insider to Cord Industries. That's like Ant-Man in the first movie. Then you have the suit itself, which looked very much not just like Iron Man, but also like Spider-Man in the Iron Spider. Blue Beetle as a character, I believe, is reasonably new. I don't know when the comic book character originally came out, but I would believe it's reasonably new. The problem with that is you have to make sure that your character's origin and superpowers are sufficiently different from others so that you can't make one-to-one comparisons. And in this case, I think what the creator did was take 4 or 5 different superheroes and take powers from each of them.
So this is a good point. Spider-Man's powers are very well known, right?
Yep.
He shoots the webs and he's quite strong and resilient. Batman, we know what his capabilities are. Aquaman, we know his capabilities. Wonder Woman, we know her capabilities. What would you say is Blue Beetle's power?
Well, exactly. That's the thing, is that
Right?
the power is just the suit.
It seems to be everything. It can fly.
Yeah.
It's obviously resistant to all types of like impact. It has the
Yeah.
ability to kind of like, similar to Iron Man's ability to shoot the rays from his hands.
Yeah.
It seems to have that type of like charging ability. And then you also saw it was able to form like swords.
Yep, like Green Lantern, the suit's AI even says, whatever you can think of, I
Yeah.
can create. That's exactly what the Green Lantern ring can do.
And that voice, I guess, Kajida, that's very much like Jeeves with Iron Man. I have to say, I wish it would have had, if it was a Beetle, I mean, Spider-Man is easy because of, the webs, but if it was really a Beetle, you'd think that it would have, I mean, beetles are really not remarkable creatures, but you'd think that it would have, like, I can understand, like, the exterior shell.
A tank. Make the character a tank. Like he can take a ton of damage because he's got that exoskeleton. He's got a carapace.
Yeah.
I don't know what else a beetle can do, but I get that a scarab can fly. I get that it's got a protective shell. Great. Use that.
But not every superhero has to be the strongest superhero, right? I mean, again, if there's a cage match of superheroes, it wouldn't be a draw between 20 superheroes. That's maybe why Batman versus Superman was so interesting conceptually, because there has to be an order between the power of superheroes, right?
Yeah.
Something similar that Amazon's done very well with The Boys, which is showing Homelander kind of like as the most powerful superhero, and everyone else is a little bit afraid of their strength and their power, right?
Yeah.
And here there should be something else. Blue Beetle may not need to be the most powerful. It has something, right? But it may have the strongest shell. It may be able to fly. It may be able to do some other things, but it doesn't need to be the be all end all because some alien scarab has been underneath Antarctic ice, for a long period of time, which by itself, to be honest, is a really boring storyline. I guess my second issue with the storyline was, apart from the fact that this is about theft, similar to kind of Ant-Man, whether or not it's for the greater good, the transition from when he gets the Blue Beetle in the burger box, which was actually a pretty good, Easter egg or throwback to other DC films, the process where it envelops him and he gets to like practice its powers, I thought was very, very fast. We've seen a lot of other superhero movies, like older ones, where it took a really long time for that character to feel comfortable, using that device. Remember, this guy's not known to be like terribly athletic. There's nothing that indicates he was like a world-class athlete or a tough guy. He's a recent college graduate. The idea that he's now kind of like an expert operating this exoskeleton is a little bit hard to believe. You see him kind of like bouncing on the water a little bit, slicing through a bus, all these kind of like embarrassing things where it shows that he has no control over it. I thought that was really kind of miserable. Even Ms. Marvel, remember, she had kind of her boyfriend love interest, and they were like on the rooftops at night practicing. Like she was practicing kind of like flying and walking on the different like floating rings. She's practicing all the different maneuvers. They're saying, well, let's test your strength. Let's test this. Like that was like a proper practice protocol. You saw the same thing in Iron Man, where Robert Downey Jr. was trying to understand, the parameters of his suit and get it, optimized to his body. It just seemed to happen way too fast. And then of course he's got his alter ego, right? The evil Blue Beetle, whatever this guy's name was,
Carapax, yeah.
The whole thing just seemed randomly thrown together, and I was just bored and yawning and not engaged at all throughout the entire movie.
No, I'm with you. Why don't we take a step back? Let's do a quick rundown of what happens in the movie. I think we've been talking about it, but we haven't really discussed it.
True.
We learn through the opening credits that there are these scarabs / beetles that are aliens that flew around space, and one of them landed on Earth. And of course, by the way, that implies that there are going to be, in the future movies, there are going to be other scarabs and other beetles in different colors, because we saw them all in different colors. So anyway, it lands on Earth. Fast forward to today. We meet up with Jaime's family. He's pre-law. The family's in big trouble. They have no money. Their house is being repossessed. Their business got repossessed. They're basically broke. He's trying to get a job. He ends up working with his sister cleaning a house. He gets fired from that job because his sister is just the worst.
Can we put a marker there?
Yeah.
It's very hard to feel sympathy for characters when it's their bad actions that kind of bring it on. Susan Sarandon is supposed to be a villain. She's supposed to be unlikable. But to be honest, it's Jaime's sister who's so unlikable, right? Like, they have legitimate jobs, whether or not they're good jobs or bad jobs. They have a job to do. They should be acting professional. Instead of portraying them as going above and beyond and these really diligent people who are treated badly, it shows them taking advantage of the situation, doing things that they obviously shouldn't, acting unprofessional and rude. Is it a surprise that they get fired for such behavior? Of course not. Why should it be rewarded otherwise, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. The two of them get fired. While they're getting fired, we learn that Susan Sarandon's Victoria Cord is obviously a very bad guy. She has spent her life trying to get the Beetle. She knows of the Beetle, and she wants to use the technology from the Beetle to make her own army of Iron Men. Her brother has gone missing, Ted Cord. He's been gone for years. Her niece has taken over the board seat. And she doesn't want to do that because she's like this modern day version of, like, you know, the pseudo woke, pseudo, like, you have to be right, you know, high ESG kind of character, where like we can't be developing weapons. We should be focused on being a force for good, blah, blah, blah.
So hold on. Ted Cord seems to be the equivalent of Robert Downey Jr.'s character, right? We see him as kind of like this brilliant scientist, inventor, who goes missing.
I would say, yeah, he's like a mix between him and like Bruce Wayne almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Bruce Wayne thing is a more apt. We'll come to why the Bruce Wayne thing is more reasonable. She tries to get Jaime a job and says to come to the headquarters the next day. He goes the next day. And then, of course, on the next day, we see that she has gone into the labs to steal the Beetle. And she puts it into a burger box. And she sees Jaime there, and she gives Jaime the burger box and tells him to get away with it.
Yeah.
And that she'll find him later. He gets away with it.
And she says, don't open it.
Yeah. To his credit, he doesn't want to, but to how awful his family's credit is, they force him to.
Yeah.
And then they use it, and they're trying to play around with it. And this is the thing that I didn't like about the family, is that no one came off as the mature one. Everyone was immature.
And it's not their property. By the way, someone gives you something, Pete, if you gave it to me, you said, just hold on to this for me. My family would never start touching it, playing with it, throwing it around. Like, they would be like, okay, like, it's someone else's property. Like, who am I to be touching it and putting fingerprints and dirt and potentially breaking it?
Neither of our families would drive us to a work interview. Yeah. I can believe everyone coming, because that's also a very Indian thing, by the way. So that I can believe. Yeah. But none of the family members would then stop, get out of the car, and start a chant in front of this very public building. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. If that's the case, that like that's a very authentic thing, maybe it is. I don't buy it. I also think that in a situation where you're trying to portray the father as this very mature guy who's, you know, kind of very philosophical about life, and they're in dire straits, I don't think then he'd be the one leading the chant either. I totally agree. I can see the stupid uncle doing that, George Lopez. I could see the bratty sister doing that, but I couldn't see the whole family then doing the same thing together. I agree. So he gets the blue beetle. The beetle jumps on his back and jumps on his chest and starts to merge with him. And while that's happening, The whole family's just standing there watching like a bunch of idiots.
And they're like laughing, like, oh, ha ha ha. It's
And
so
like
funny.
you can see his clothes are burning away, his skin is burning away.
Yeah.
There's no sense of panic. There's no sense of fear for their only son. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Fine, no matter how stupid that was. Then we have that montage of the Beetle kind of like acting more as a computer than as an organic being. It goes through its systems checks, it goes through a bunch of things, flying, the shields, all that kind of stuff. Fast forward to that evening, he goes to find the girl so that he can be like, what the hell is going on?
Can I also say, though, there's two ways to make a superhero movie. You can have a silly movie, and then all bets are off because you agree that you suspend belief.
Yeah.
Or you have a realistic superhero movie. If you're going to have a realistic superhero movie, all of the things that happened during that kind of training sequence would have generated massive public alarms, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The mayhem that he caused kind of downtown with the bus and all these things. Significant law enforcement is going to be called for this, right?
Yeah. In fact, I don't remember seeing a single police officer throughout the entire movie, by the way.
None.
Anyway, so he goes to see Jenny. Instead of being reasonably pissed off that she's done this, she's kind of like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know this would happen. I can't believe it chose you, blah, blah, blah.
And it didn't really make sense because he just kind of was driving downtown.
Yeah.
Somehow she escaped from wherever. And instead of just running, she's kind of like hiding behind cars. He happens to see her. She gets in the truck, and then people in like downtown Miami start shooting at her. Doesn't make sense.
They escape, come back to his house.
Yeah.
Where she was like, I don't understand what's going on, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then they say, okay, well, we can go back. I know a place where we can hide out and we can try to figure out how to get it off.
Yeah.
They go with Uncle Rudy, George Lopez, who's supposed to be like the tech genius of the family. They go to her house where they learn that, dun, 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 her father was the original Blue Beetle, but was never able to merge with it. And so he became basically like Batman. He used the technology to create a bunch of weapons and the ship, and he becomes Batman. And of course, that's also the part where we learn that Rudy calls Batman a fascist and all that kind of nonsense, which I don't know. I just thought that was ridiculous. And then, we have that moment where he realizes that the bad guys are going to go to his house. So he goes in and tries to save the day. And of course, he doesn't want to kill anyone. So he's trying to do everything non-lethally. That ends about as well as you'd expect it to. He gets captured. His father dies, has a heart attack throughout the whole thing. And that's the end of the second act. Then the third act is the family rallying together. We're so strong because we're a family. That's the most powerful thing ever. We'll be able to get our son back. That's the most important thing. Where was all this compassion 20 minutes ago when he was literally being burned alive? They go with Jenny Cord, get all of the original Blue Beetle stuff, and try to save him. And then, of course, this is where the film veers into even more ridiculousness than it did before. The grandmother was like a revolutionary in Mexico. She's all of a sudden like this paramilitary expert. She was portrayed as this like very frail, old, polite woman who doesn't speak English at all, who's kind of just like this sweet, innocent Nana. And then all of a sudden she's letting her hair down, wielding a
Die
mini
fascists.
and she's saying, die fascist, die you imperialist scum, and she's shooting people down. And by the way, they are killing people. This is not an issue where they were just like, okay, we're kind of not going to kill anyone. We're going to just kind of let them die off screen. They're killing people on screen. And gruesome deaths.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit weird for me. They rescue Jaime. And then, of course, they weren't able to stop Victoria from grabbing the Blue Beetle's DNA in the meantime. And she uses the DNA and the code computer program to kind of make their own version of the Iron Man suit for the bad guy, whose name is Carapax, which sounds very much like Carapace, which is like the exoskeleton of, these things are so on the nose. They have a huge battle sequence. He looks like he's going to fight, but he reaches into his inner soul. He has this moment where he sees his father in the afterlife. He decides, no, he can do this. And then, of course, they battle it out. He saves the day effectively. Victoria, Susan Sarandon, gets killed by the bad guy. The movie ends with the community getting back together to help them repair the house. And the movie ends with Jaime and Jenny making out, which also, by the way, didn't make any sense. Like, there was no reason for the two of them to get together. He had a crush on her, sure, but why was that reciprocated? There was no, it was just a trope of these movies that you have to have the male protagonist with the female protagonist get together. And that's the crux of the movie.
My complaints about this movie is that apart from the tone, and I really do have a problem with the tone, but I just thought that the story and the script were so generic and cheesy.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that the budget was only 120 million. This was kind of initially meant for it to be like an HBO series, and then it was rolled into, a movie. But I mean, I'm just a little bit surprised that James Gunn watched this and said before it was even released, like, wow, this is good. Like, we definitely need to make this character part of our extended universe. I feel like that's either political pressure or something else, but like, there's nothing about this movie objectively, really objectively. If this would have been an Indian family, an Arab family, a white family, a black family, Asian family, there's nothing apart from the ethnicity of this movie that makes it stand out.
Yeah.
In no way does a character stand out. Shazam has a personality. The Flash has a personality. Black Adam had a personality. You'd be hard pressed to tell me exactly what is the Blue Beetle personality. What does Blue Beetle stand for? Nothing, to be honest. It's a kid who was unknowingly wrapped up by a scarab, and that's it. That's the extent of the personality we know of. We don't know that he's particularly smart, athletic, a do-gooder, a bad person. We just don't know anything about the personality at all. Not a single funny line, not a single admirable line. Loved his father, of course, just like every other son in the history of the world loves their father. Sad when they passed, just like almost every son is sad when they pass. I thought the entire thing was just so cheesy and cliched and never challenged me to think differently about, the superhero genre.
Yeah. It's very eclectic.
Yeah.
It's very generic. And those are the good things about it. The bad things are like the characters are offensive. And I don't mean that in the sense offensive, like as a racial stereotype. I am not Mexican. I can't tell you how close or how far those depictions are. But good is good, bad is bad. None of those characters were good. And I do mean good in the sense, like, even as a morality thing, like they were all terrible people.
I mean, you'd be hard pressed to take any of those characters and say, this is the model. That's a really admirable person that I want to grow up and model my life after.
The father came the closest.
Yeah.
But then, for every step forward he took 2 steps back because he was also a part of that like immature aspect of the family.
Yeah.
You don't get to be the father figure who's talking about how life is a journey and you don't know what the destination is going to be and have this heart to heart with your son. We have to do the right thing and we'll get there. We always find a way. And then the next day, egg him on to open up this thing and put it on and do all this stuff. It's not the right thing. If his father had been the one lone dissenting voice, that would have been fine. In fact, that would have been very appropriate. Yeah. But in fact, his father was egging him on as well.
I mean, you're right. The alternate storyline is that Jaime comes back and he's kind of in his bedroom with the Beetle and he's thinking, hey, I just lost my job. What are all the ways that I can monetize this?
Yeah.
I can make appearances. I can be famous. I can steal money. And his father's like, hey, that doesn't belong to you. It doesn't matter like how tough things are for you now. You've got to do the right thing. That's a better storyline. And then you're like, wow, I really admire the grandma for saying that, the father for saying that. The sister's like, hey, don't worry. Like, this isn't you. Like, all of those voices that are trying to calm him down. And he's kind of like the aggressive one or the wild one or the risk-taking one. And then maybe he loses his father and then he becomes more mature after that. He says,
Yeah.
you're right. I shouldn't have done that. Like, I didn't need to, cheat and break the rules and use something that didn't belong to me to be prosperous. I should have done it the right way, like my father said, right? Now I'm going to change. I'm going to use this for good. That's a better character arc that makes you kind of like the character a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
But here we don't get that. The same thing with Jenny Cord. I kind of like the idea of Jenny Cord. I mean, she's striking as an actress, but again, like, there's no real reason for her to not be getting along with her aunt. She is young. Like, how many young people really have enough sense to be making like these significant decisions about a company that was their father's company, now their aunt's company? They should probably stay out of things, right? You don't just go to a building and start stealing things because you think you know better. Whether or not that is, in the great scheme of things, the right or wrong thing to do. That's not the way that society works. You don't just go steal something because you think that everyone is doing the wrong thing, right?
In fact, I would have thought that it would have been interesting if she actually backed her aunt, because her aunt was wrongly not given the company because her grandfather was sexist and believed it should go to the son and not the daughter. And so she was like, no, I backed my aunt because I also want that opportunity that, when it's my time, I will get this company and not my layabout brother just because he's a guy.
Yeah. And then you can go through, like, she's very supportive of her aunt, but over time she starts to see some cracks, right? And then she like breaks with her.
Yeah.
Also makes more sense. But we've seen this thing with a missing father so many times. It's just, and we know he's coming back, right? We saw the mid-credit sequence.
Spoiler alert. I was so done with the movie, I left. I didn't even want to stick around for the mid-credit sequence. So please tell us.
The mid-credit sequence, we see, of course, that she goes back to the house or the laboratory and finds some message from her father that somehow indicates that he's still alive and somewhere. I didn't entirely understand it, but the takeaway is he is alive. He is somewhere, obviously with the other Beatles, and that when there's going to be a sequel, that he's going to reappear.
If there's going to be a sequel.
Which is very much like Ant-Man.
Oh my God, yeah. Janet Van Dyne in the Quantum Realm.
Right? Very, very similar to that, right? We think that Janet Van Dyne is gone, and then we find out that, she's not gone. They go and they save her and they rescue her and they all come back and they're all reunited. It's exactly like that. That he is obviously somewhere. The next movie will be, I'm sure it's going to be just like Ant-Man and Wasp. Now Jenny Cord's going to get a suit as well. And she'll be Red Beetle or Pink Beetle, whatever.
Yeah.
And Pink Beetle and Blue Beetle will go back and they'll go get Ted, bring Ted back, and that's going to be it. And then Ted will give them new capabilities and optimize it and always be their Overwatch.
Yeah, I mean, fine.
So this is DC. DC, we know, is Superman, Batman, to a lesser extent, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. Where does Blue Beetle fit into this?
So let's talk about a few good things, okay? One, first of all, I thought Palmera City looked awesome. I really liked that take on futuristic Miami.
Yeah.
Two, the effects were pretty good. I mean, for $120 million, they did a lot with the effects. I thought that was fine. I liked the music. I thought the soundtrack was good. What else I liked was that this movie was insulated. Insulated in the sense that we don't see any tie-ins to any of the other DC Universe characters. That's why James Gunn can make a comment like this guy's going to be in the new DC Universe, because it's not tied to Zack Snyder's Batman in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I mean, when the new one comes out in 2026, I'll probably see it just because you and I see everything. But I have to say, for something like Dune, to put it in context, you and I are like actively like, oh man, I can't wait until Dune 2 in November. Oh, that's a bummer. It's going to be delayed. For Blue Beetle 2, doesn't matter. Tell me the day that it shows up in cinemas, I'll go. I won't like it. We'll talk about it. But like, I'm absolutely have no interest in following when it's going to be released or what the storyline is or seeing the trailer or anything like that.
I actually think that based on box office, let's talk about this. It made $25 million domestic and $50 million gross worldwide. I actually don't expect there to be a sequel. One, I think James Gunn is not going to put a sequel into the schedule. At most, what I think we're going to see is cameos of Blue Beetle in other movies. I think he's a very niche character. I think he's a very generic character. I don't know how much of a fan favorite he is of everybody else's. I think that he's perfect as a blink and you miss it cameo in other people's movies.
This is why then the director should have taken more risks with this movie. This should have been this quirky, offbeat Guardians of the Galaxy. You've got nothing to lose movie. This movie was made before James Gunn. It's a niche character. If you're going to play it this safe, borrow a little bit from everything, it's never going anywhere. This should have had its own really interesting story that was offbeat and, you know, had its own like little cult following because of that.
I agree. It was so bad. It
was so bad.
I had no expectations, but I didn't think it was going to be this bad. And I just thought it was horrendous. Honestly, I think I just had such a negative, visceral reaction to the family more than anything else. And the sister was just awful.
Yeah,
really awful. And again, I want to make it clear, this is not a slight on the actors. This is a slight more on the writing and the portrayal of said.
It's the story, it's the script, and it's the tone.
Yeah.
You have a blank slate. You can make all of these characters very, very likable. You can make them very unlikable, right? And if you take an example of the original Transformers, Sam Witwicky, he was always in a position where he was actually trying to do his best and things are going badly for him. And here it was kind of the opposite, that you didn't see that Jaime and his sister Milagro were fired for an accident. They weren't trying to cover up for a coworker. They weren't trying to fix something. They were unfairly blamed for it. She was like flat out rude and unprofessional, saying, hey, I'm going to go use a bathroom that I know I'm not allowed to use. And when I come out, I'm going to be really vulgar and ugly about what I just did. That's entirely on them. Had they been this really close brother and sister, had they been unfairly fired for something that wasn't their fault, that you had this compassion and sympathy for, it changes the entire tone of the movie. The same thing, if Jaime is trying to utilize the Scarab, you know, for what he thinks are good purposes to support his family, but are really kind of bad things, and the father's trying to talk him out of it, and the grandmother's trying to talk him out of it, and then he loses them both, and then he changes his tune and he realizes, you know, the old Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. That's a much more powerful narrative. You know, it's a very emotional moment in the movie, and we become much more aligned with him. None of that happened.
Absolutely none.
So I guess we know what our final ratings are, but should we say them for the record?
I want my money back, James Gunn. That was terrible.
For me, it's a skip. If we were being really cynical, do you think Gunn is trotting some of these movies out just to kind of show how bad they are and to set the baseline low so that his success is much better? Is he kind of saying, you know what? You want a Mexican movie? There's your Mexican movie. Don't bother me again. That one failed. I get to cast whoever I want, however I want going forward.
Yeah, so there's certainly going to be a level of politics at play, right? I don't know how much of that it is. I also don't know how much of a politician James Gunn is.
Yeah.
But there certainly is going to be an element of, I gave it your shot. I did what you asked of me. And what you asked of me was absolutely horrendous. I now need you to back off me for the next 8 movies. And after 8 movies, if I don't achieve success at least as well as you have, then it's fair game for you to say something. But until then, I need you guys to just keep writing the checks and keep your mouth shut and let me work.
Yeah. Do you think it was better to keep, what was the one that he shelved? He shelved Batgirl.
Batgirl. I would have much preferred to see Batgirl than this.
I agree. Knowing what we know now, the only thing that maybe changes that is that we saw Supergirl, and to have a Batgirl and a Supergirl is a little bit not duplicative, but it is. Whereas Blue Beetle, I guess, was a little bit different from those. So I can see in terms of like kind of spreading the risk, you can say, look, we tried Supergirl, we tried Blue Beetle, and at least he can say, look, I took a sample of everything if you've got to cut one of those two.
Ugh.
Anyway, that's Blue Beetle. Pete, if people want to disagree with us or agree, where can they do so?
Yep. If you think Blue Beetle was a blue turd, reach out to us. You can tweet at us at F&S Podcast. You can DM us on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast. Email us aloha@filmsandstuffpodcast.com. Or as always, leave a comment below, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to hit that bell.
Gee, thank you for your time, listeners. Thank you for your time. That is it for us at Films and Stuff. We will see you on our next episode.
Thanks, Ethan.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.